Hey guys, today I just wanted to make a quick video about what it's like having three kids. I think a lot of people are debating or on the fence about having a third, so I hope in making this video that it helps give you a better idea of what to expect. Okay, so I have three kids and I just got out of the 3 under 4 stage. So I had 3 under 4 for over 6 months. It was a fairly long stage for us, but it was really fun. It had its challenges for sure, but hands down, going from 2 to 3 kids was a much easier transition than going from 1 to 2 or even from 0 to 1, because at that point you already have 2 kids, you already have that experience, and adding another one into the mix for us was pretty smooth. There is a caveat that I would put out there, is that I knew I would have help. My husband had 3 months off once my third came into the picture. So if you are on the fence about having a third, I would say look at how much help that you're going to get or not get. And that might influence whether you go for your third now or you wait another year. So the age gap between my first 2 kids is 2 years, and then the age gap between my second 2, my middle and my youngest, is only 14 and a half months. So that's a really tight age gap, and we planned it that way because we knew he would be off for 3 months. My husband would be able to help. If I knew I wasn't going to have that help, like I knew with the second child, I wasn't going to have help. But we knew he would have a significant amount of time off. So for us, it was worth just going ahead and getting it done, so to say. We knew we wanted a third as when I was pregnant with my second. So we knew well in advance we wanted to try for a third. So I will say, if you know you're going to have help, having a closer age gap might be totally doable. But if you know that you're not going to have that help, spacing them out between 2 to 3 years is probably your best bet. So the biggest and most immediate effect on our family was sleep. Not just because we had a newborn now suddenly, but more because my middle child was still waking up once a night. So we tag teamed it. We were able to do that because my husband wasn't working. So once my third came into the picture, we moved my older 2 girls into the same room. That was the second challenge. So not only was my middle child still waking up pretty much once a night, every other night, but she was sleeping in the same room as my oldest, who was just barely 3 and a half at that point. So that was the second challenge for us. Maybe you don't have to have your kids' room share. Maybe you do. Consider that as a factor when you're trying to figure out when to go for your third. Do you have to have your kids' room share or not? For us, we wanted to have that spare room remain the guest room, at least while they're still young. While they're, really young, like under 10 years old, I really think it's okay to room share. I mean, it's okay to room share regardless of how old. It's, each family has their own circumstances. So, but that is a factor to think about. So at one point, for the first 2 months of my daughter's life, of my third daughter, everyone was up at like 2 a.m. for like 30 minutes crying. My middle child would wake up my older child, and then my husband would go deal with them. And then my youngest would wake up needing to breastfeed and do all the normal things. And she was, just a horrible sleeper. My youngest is, to this day, my worst sleeper, but now we're coming out of that phase. She's 11 months old now. It's kind of tough when you're in it and she's, and they're a really bad sleeper. I don't know what the reason was. They're all different. They're all unique. You just got to take it with a grain of salt. So can you handle, 3, 4, 6 months of no sleep while having toddlers? That's, again, another factor. How much energy does your toddler suck out of you on a daily basis? And that might be an influence. You might want to wait until your toddler comes out of that tantrum stage. My oldest was 3 and a half when my third came around. And that's a really nice age gap because you can actually talk to them and say, hey, baby's not feeling good right now. Can you just help mommy? Can you just get me a diaper? Or, they understand what's going on, whereas a 2-year-old isn't really cognizant enough to understand. Aside from sleep and the bedtime routine, that was our biggest change. The next thing we did, we bought a bigger vehicle. So that's something else to think about. Do you have to get a new vehicle to have this third child? And if so, maybe you need to wait another 6 months or maybe a year even to be able to comfortably afford this bigger vehicle. So as far as the logistics, like just the everyday nitty gritty of having 3 under 4, that was fun. For me personally, I loved having that really close age gap with my kids. My 3.5-year-old was so good with the baby. She was able to hold her as soon as she was born and just be careful enough and cognizant enough to be gentle with her, to go fetch a diaper. She loved helping. I would not even have to ask. She just loved being a part of it. She loved taking on that big sister role in the way that she didn't get to with my second daughter. Because she was only 2 at that time when she was born. So as far as having the 14-month age gap, so my middle child and my youngest child, you do have to be a little bit more aware of your surroundings. Putting the baby on the floor is no longer a safe spot. Because my 14-month-old would run over and drop a toy on her face or something. So something else to think about is where are you going to be putting this baby throughout the day if your kids are very close in age? Again, this isn't a big deal if your oldest is 3, and understands physics a little bit better. So all that to say, I really don't think making your decisions to have a third rely on things like, do we have a big enough vehicle right now? Or would the older 2 are going to have to room share? If those are determining factors for you, then okay. But for us, they weren't, and they don't have to be. So for us, it was more important to have our third child that we knew belonged in our family. You hear a lot of people say 1 kid is 1 kid, 2 children are 2 children, but 3 children is 400 children. In my experience, that has not been the case. In fact, I would argue the opposite because having 1 child was as a stay-at-home mom, you constantly have to be the one entertaining that child. There's no one else to entertain them. And then when I had 2, suddenly I had a toddler to kind of help entertain the baby as she got older. And then with 3, it became even more easy because now I had 2 toddlers who could play with each other. My youngest would just get a kick out of watching the older 2 play. So even just having that stimulation for the baby, it's I didn't even need to be there. I just needed to supervise and make sure nobody was going to do a backflip off the couch or something. So in my experience, having more children has been easier. They entertain each other, they help each other out, especially as they get older. Something else that I noticed though was that apparently there's a big difference to society if you have 3 kids versus just 2 or even just 1. Because suddenly people think you have a baseball team, or in our case, a softball team of kids, even though to me, 3 is not that big of a number. We were getting comments when I was pregnant with my third, oh, what happens if it's another girl, ha ha, and then you wind up with all girls, ha ha. And my response was okay, we're having a child to have a child, not to have a girl or to have a boy. Gender is not, if gender is a determining factor in how many children you have, well, that's a whole separate issue right there. But for us, we were having another child to have more love in our family, yes, your heart will absolutely exponentially expand when a third child comes in. If you're worried about not having enough attention or love for all 3, do not worry about it. Do not listen to the haters who say otherwise. How can you mentally be there for 3 kids? I could barely do it with 1. Look, everyone is different. You're going to have to decide what you can mentally, emotionally, and physically handle. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone tell you that there's no way you would have enough love to go around. You absolutely can. I would never change having 3 for the world. And I know that there's probably parents in the moment who are like, oh, like, don't go for the 3rd. I've seen that online. I've seen parents say that before. But are they the parents who are like 60 now and retired and can just enjoy their grown children and their grandkids? Or are they like in the moment, in the thick of it? Because I think a lot of times people get wrapped up in the nitty gritty, like the hardest part when they're babies or when they're toddlers, and those are really hard stages. But you're only going to have your kids at home for 20 years, hopefully. But really for 20 years and then the rest of your life, you're a parent from a distance. So you're not going to be hands-on parenting anymore. That's such a short snippet of time that for me, losing out on that sleep or missing out on certain opportunities because we have all 3 kids, to me, those are not deciding factors to have another kid or to not have another kid. It goes by so fast, and it really, really does. It doesn't feel like it in the moment. What do they always say? It's like the days are long, but the years are short. And that's exactly my experience. So anyways, I hope that this has been informative and helped to kind of elaborate on what it's like having 3 children, especially 3 very close in age children. My story is very positive. I know that there's plenty of moms who agree that it's just been a wonderful, wonderful addition to our family. But I also understand it's not necessarily for everyone. At the end of the day, you're just going to have to listen to your own heart in deciding whether a 3rd child is right for your family or not. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.